Abraham Lincoln was the kind of speaker who could fill an hour with words. In fact, when you look at his career, there are speeches that take up pages and pages. His debates with Stephen Douglas about slavery alone are well over 4 hours long, if you were to listen to them straight. But on November 19th, 1863, none of that was going to be helpful. Not when Lincoln was standing on the field of Gettysburg in front of thousands of people trying to convince them that this was more than just another battle. This was a test of the United States itself. He had 2 minutes, maybe 3, and then he had to move on to the next thing. So Lincoln began looking for something powerful enough to speak to the grief of hundreds of families without insulting their loss. Something that could inspire thousands of people to see the value of fighting a war that had taken so much from them already. What Lincoln needed was a way to reduce decades of history to just a couple of minutes. And that's why we tell this story in a shorter format. Now, these are the top 3 reasons that the Gettysburg Address still inspires. The first is that Lincoln made everyone there feel like they had a stake in what was happening. Let me explain! Gettysburg was a town of... When the battle happened, though, they would suddenly host tens of thousands of soldiers, and soon after, thousands of widows and mothers and sisters and brothers who were tending to their wounded and dying loved ones. And while the main reason they were there was to dedicate a cemetery for fallen soldiers, they knew that didn't make them special. They weren't some great historical city that hosted monumental events. They were just Gettysburg, and they were struggling. Then Lincoln came along with his fancy words and he said, 7 years ago, which is a really complicated way of saying 87. But once he starts counting backwards, he's not just talking about a battle or a small town or the difficulties of burying so many people. He's talking about the birth of the United States itself. All of a sudden, Lincoln took something that was incredibly personal and small and made it vast and beautiful. When he talked about the founding of the country, he meant the Declaration of Independence. But he wasn't just referring to a piece of paper. He was referring to an idea. The nation was built upon a set of unalienable rights that include life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So when Lincoln says, 7 years ago, our fathers walked forth on this continent, a new nation, conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal, he's arguing that the Civil War isn't just about the Confederacy, it's about preserving the idea that America stands for something greater than itself. In fact, he goes further and implies that the United States holds a sacred trust for all people. That if this experiment fails, then the concept of liberty fails everywhere. Lincoln realized that America always had a dual identity, one that was living up to its ideals and one that was falling short. And that was true then, and it's still true now. The second reason that the Gettysburg Address inspires today is that it forced future generations to finish what Lincoln started. That's why it's so fitting that Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. spoke from the steps of the Lincoln Memorial when he called for an end to racism in America. But the interesting thing is that Lincoln didn't actually talk about slavery in the Gettysburg Address. He danced around it, he hinted at it. He said that this was a test to see if a nation built on the idea of equality could survive, but he never explicitly mentioned slavery. That was intentional. Lincoln didn't want to lose the attention of his audience, not when the stakes were so high, so he counted backward 87 years and forward toward the future, and he challenged everyone. Everybody listening to him in 1863, and everybody who reads his speech today, to finish his sentence, we hereby resolve that these dead shall not have died in vain. This nation, under God, shall have a new birth, and that government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth. Now, if you read those words, you might think, project exists. We don't think America is perfect. We do want to pretend that things are working the way they should or that our leaders are always doing the right thing. We do know that change comes through engagement, not apathy. And that's why we invite you to subscribe to our channel. Make sure you stay updated on everything we're doing because we're just getting started. And the third reason that the Gettysburg Address still inspires today is that Lincoln used a style that anyone can follow. Today, the internet makes it easy for us to consume huge amounts of information at a moment's notice. We click from one thing to the next. When we do that, we often lose the chance to see. We don't consider. We just move on. Lincoln's speech was so short that there's no one to hide. You can't speed through it. You can't scroll past it. You have to spend a little time reflecting on what he said. And when you do that, you realize that his speech is structured like a regular conversation. First, he sets the stage by acknowledging the gravity of the situation. Then he explains what's at stake. Then he calls everyone there to meet. And he ends by affirming that yes, hard times are coming. We know that because we see it every day. We get messages from teachers who are bringing Lincoln's words into their classrooms. We see articles online that are inspired by his example. And we hear from everyday people who say they turn to Lincoln when they need a dose of inspiration. Because his speech isn't just about the past, it's about the present and the future. And that's why we share his story, because we want to help others find that same inspiration. Lincoln didn't use fancy words. He didn't resort to name-calling or empty threats. He simply told the people gathered in Gettysburg that there was work to be done. And he urged them to finish the work that the soldiers had started. And that work is ongoing. Like Lincoln said, that government of the people, by the people, for the people shall not perish from this earth. If you believe that too, then we encourage you to subscribe to our channel and follow us on social media. Join us in our mission to keep the union of time alive, and together we'll ensure that Lincoln's words continue to inspire generations to come.